All right, Dave, what do you think? Should we do another character build? How about a Paladin Hexblade?
You know, Ted, that kind of reminds me of Michael Moorcock's Elric, Stealer of Souls.
Who is he?
Ruler of a decadent civilization that's made a pact with a powerful sword.
That sounds an awful lot like Black Razor and a Hexblade. Should we just D&Dize Elric?
In the immortal words of Michael Moorcock, legends are best left as legends, and attempts to make them real are rarely successful.
Well, then let's just do an Adventures League legal character build. We'll combine Paladin and Warlock, and we'll make the Hexadin.
Sounds like a plan. Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Dave, and today I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchist Ted.
Hey, maybe it's your first time hanging out in Ted's basement. It's a place where we like to talk about news, views, and homebrews for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Sometimes we talk about other role-playing games.
So if you don't want to miss a single video, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button and attune to that notification bell.
All right, Adventure League 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons character build. We're combining the Warlock with the Paladin, and more specifically, we're going to create the Hexadin, which means we're going to use the Hexblade.
Makes a lot of sense to me. I know that there's much love out there for the Warlock, but we're going more specific with this one, with the Hexadin. Now, is that a term you've heard others use, or is that a term you made up?
I definitely did not make it up. It is out there on the interwebs. But it's a great combination. There's a lot of synergy there. Both of them are charisma casters. But not only that, as a paladin, usually you want to use strength as well. But the Hexblade allows you to replace that strength score with your charisma score for combat. So you can beat them with your good looks.
You beat them with your charisma, your presence, your power. Works for me.
All right, so we're going to jump into it. And, I mean, we referenced Michael Moorcock's Elric because a Hexblade really makes me think of that type of character. But we're not going to actually, stick to it. But we're definitely influenced a little bit. I read those books years ago. You've only heard of them. And me and Nerdator Doug were kind of talking about it with you the other day.
So we're taking some inspirations, but sadly, this is in no way, shape, or form a D&Dizing of Elric. So, as always with our character builds, we start off with, who is he? What kind of race choices are we looking at here?
Well, you know what? This one, pulling a little bit from the inspiration, a little bit from, hey, we haven't used this race yet. We decided to go with Tiefling.
All right, so we're looking at Tiefling. Tiefling is a lot of fun. Getting that plus to charisma right off the bat is going to be really good for both the Paladin and the Warlock, obviously. Intelligence, not so much.
Well, we're going to be a little bit smarter of a Warlock than normal, but that's fine. We'll use it. You get cool abilities, you get spell-like abilities, you get resistance to fire. All that stuff's going to work really well and play into our favor. Because we're doubling down on that charisma, we're really not going to have to worry about other stats.
Obviously, our classes have been picked for us. We're looking at Paladin and Warlock because we're making the Hexadin. Are we planning to add anything else into our mix?
We don't have to, but I really feel like we should probably start with Paladin for this build.
Going with Paladin is the smarter choice. If we went with Warlock first, we would lose access to the heavy armor, which we want. Going with Paladin first, we really don't gain anything or lose anything, by taking Warlock second.
Exactly. So with that, the next choice we're going to make is our background.
Now, as you said in our intro, that he was a ruler of a civilization, so we really didn't consider anything else. We went with noble.
Yeah, this was kind of a no-brainer for us. Our guy's going to be a little haughty and a little above thou, so we definitely went with a noble, and we're going to get some stuff for doing that.
Well, we're going to get history. We're going to get persuasion. We're going to get a gaming set, and since this character is intelligent, we went with chess. And then we're also going to get a language, and since we get infernal from our race, we went abyssal.
Why not? Let's cover all the fiends. With that, we're going to start to get into our actual build. But before we do that, we wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsors of this video, Triple God Foundry. They've got a Kickstarter going on right now.
Right now, they have a Kickstarter for The Curse of Hollow Hills. As a miniature lover, This thing totally spoke to me. You got a lot of options here. Whether you're a collector of minis and you want to go all in and get every single miniature that's going to be a part of the pledge, or whether you're, the lone adventurer and you want to just be like, you know what, that one hero is super awesome, I want that. There's pledge levels to cover all of it. You got hero options, you got monster options. I think that they did really well with designing their pledge levels. You can select specific encounters, which will get you a minimum of 6 miniatures designed around a specific theme, and there's 4 different options for that. They got some dreadful monstrosities, and, well, they're all undead, but they got, right now, access to 3 really massive miniatures. There's the Death Watcher, there's the Undying Worm, and there's the Foul Abomination. All of the sculpts, of what's on the Kickstarter page are super sweet. Really looking forward to see, how many more stretch goals they have unlocked. How many have they covered so far, Dave?
So far, they've knocked 15 of them out of the park. They're heading towards number 16. I can't imagine that they're not going to make all the stretch goals that they have listed. These sculpts, like you said, look amazing. Now, I have not seen any of their miniatures in person yet, but when I was playing D&D in a castle in France last year, Cripple God Foundry was one of the sponsors, and they had their terrain there. There was painted modular terrain, and it looked fantastic. So I'm expecting great things from this miniature set.
Go check out the link. It's down in the description. Help out the channel by supporting our sponsors and get yourself some awesome minis.
We've got our first class. We've got our race. We've got our background.
But you know what we don't have? We don't have stats yet.
We do not have stats yet. Now, even though we don't really need a high strength because of our charisma, we still need a high strength. Unfortunately, if we want to wear the heaviest of armor. But that being said, we only need a 15. We can stop there and we never have to put another point in strength.
Now, we need a 13 just to be able to cover our multi-class. So it's not a hard jump to get to that 15 so that we have the ability to, wear that full plate that we all know and love.
So as you may have guessed, we take our 15 and we put it in strength.
Now, here's where we deviate from the typical norm of that which is Elric. From the conversations that we had, he was actually somewhat, sickly and weak, but agile. So we're kind of flipping that. We're going to go with the 15 strength and the 8 dex.
Although we did not make our character super hardy, we went with a 10 for Constitution. This is not a super optimized build. We're building for fun here, folks. We put a 13 in Intelligence, a 12 in Wisdom, and a 14 in our Charisma.
And then with your racial bumps, obviously that goes to a 14 Intelligence, and then a 16 in Charisma. Thematically, we're linking towards what we really want.
When we're done this build, we're going to end up with a bit of a glass cannon. He's not going to have a solid jaw to take a hit, but man, is this character going to be able to deal out some damage.
All right, so you made mention that we're going to go with Paladin first. Paladin's going to give us a number of options, both class-wise and skill-wise.
For our skills, we went with Intimidation and Religion.
So religion, this character is studious. That's what led to him being a paladin. But we also went with intimidation to kind of build into that whole warlock and scary aspect. But, from paladin, we're also going to get divine sense and lay on hands.
So second level, we're going to leave paladin behind, and now we're going to begin taking levels in warlock.
We knew this was a direction that we were already going to go. We've already made mention that we're going Hexblade, so there's our patron right there.
Right, and we're going to actually go 3 levels into Warlock right away because we need to get to our Pact Moon in order to fully optimize our character, in the sense that we want this character to be fighting with a greatsword, very much like Elric did. And in order to do that and combine it with your Hexblade abilities, you need to take your Pact Moon, Pact of the Blade.
So on that path, we're also going to get our invocations. Since racially, we are going to get access to darkness. We thought this would be a lot of fun to use the ye old staple of Devil's Sight.
And we also took Fiendish Vigor because this character is a bit of a glass cannon and can use some extra temporary hit points.
This finishes off Warlock for a little while, but don't worry, we're coming back. We're actually going to take quite a number of levels in Paladin because we're gearing up towards a specific set of abilities. So when we take our next level, we're going to get our fighting style, and since we're already using a great weapon, well, great weapon fighting is going to make the most sense.
Absolutely. This is also when we're going to get our divine smiting as well as spellcasting.
And now we got some Warlock spell slots to use. We've got some Paladin spell slots to use. So, bring on the smiting chainsaw.
Yeah, we're getting ready. We're getting ready for this all the way.
So as we move on with Paladin, we're going to get our Sacred Oath, and we're going to go with Vengeance, but we're also going to get Divine Health.
Yeah, we didn't see this character as being particularly a nice guy, so Vengeance kind of made a lot of sense for that. Darker, maybe a little bit of Judge Dredd feel to him.
As we continue on the path of Paladin, we're going to get our first ASI, ability stat increase, and we're going to actually take that increase, and we're going to bump up our Charisma by 2, taking it to an 18.
Yep, which now we're going to be able to use for all of our casting and also all of our attacking and damaging, so it works really nicely.
And, intimidation.
And intimidation. Now, our next level, again, is Paladin because... hey, we're at 4, might as well go to 5 so we can get extra attack and we can get 2 attacks around with that greatsword.
So 6th level in Paladin gets us our Aura of Protection. Since we're focusing so heavily on our Charisma, it makes sense to go one more level and get that Charisma to all your saves as well as to any of your allies if you happen to have any. And, doing so actually is going to finish off Paladin for us. The rest of our levels are going to wind up being in Warlock.
Yeah, but don't worry, we're not done. We are really going to supercharge this character from their Charisma modifier alone.
Speaking of, when we do take our next level in Warlock, as I stated, that's going to be level 4. That's going to bump our Charisma up to 20.
Matter of fact, our next, I believe, 8 levels are going to be all Warlock. And we're going to get some really sweet things by doing this.
So we're going to have to choose our invocations. We're going to have to choose what we took for our ASIs. And we're going to have to choose, the little bit of Mystic Arcanum that we actually do get.
So your next level in Warlock is going to give you another invocation. We're going to go Eldritch Smite, which you can absolutely combine that with your Paladin Smites. So you can double smite.
We can go technically a little bit further. There are some smites that you can cast as a bonus action. So you cast your smite, attack with it, and then once you hit, declare a Paladin Smite and an Eldritch Smite. So getting 3 spell slots off in one attack with your Hexblade's abilities, you have the increased crit range. So you could potentially be dropping a ton of dice on those attacks.
Yeah, it could get nasty really quick. You're going to be dropping almost 30 dice on the table. That is way better than a fireball. You're out of spells, but that's way better than a fireball.
So, if you want to look and see, how we did all of this, we got the build guide, links down in the description below, as well as the character sheet that you can look at over on D&D Beyond.
Our next Warlock ability is actually going to get us to our Hexblade ability of Accursed Spectre.
Yeah, it's always good to have minions and fodder, while you're laying into your enemies. As we continue down this path, we're going to get our next invocation, and we're going to go with a Relentless Hex.
If you have them cursed from any basically Warlock ability, like the Hex ability, the Hexblade curse, or the curse spell that you can get through one of your invocations, now you can, as a bonus action, basically Misty Step to them or teleport to them.
So next we move on and we get our next ASI, and since we have been beating things down with a greatsword, it's time to get a little bit better, and we're going to go with Great Weapon Master. This is an awesome feat for anyone who is using those big weapons repeatedly. If you're hitting hard and hitting easily, you can take that -5 to hit to be able to get that +10 to damage. I know that there's other stuff, but here we're talking about hitting harder, so that's what we're looking at from that.
Yeah, so one of the downsides we're starting to see develop from this character build, though, is we've got like 4 or 5 different things we can do with bonus actions. We are never going to lack something to do with a bonus action with this build. Next up, we are going to get another invocation from our next level, and we are going to take Maddening Hex. Now, remember we said we're going to be really doubling down on that Charisma modifier. Basically, if you hex someone, you can use this on them as a bonus action. They'll take psychic damage equal to your Charisma modifier, but so will everyone you choose within 5 foot of them.
Yeah, so it's a way to just cause some extra turbulence. It'd be amusing if you're fighting, kobolds and goblins and sturges and what have you, as things just. But at that level, you really shouldn't be fighting those kind of things.
But it would be funny if you were.
Next up, we're gonna get a specific Hexblade ability, Armor of Hexes, which is so amazing. This thing allows you that when the target of your hex attacks you with a, in melee, you've basically got a 50% miss chance. You roll a d6 for every attack that, comes at you, and on a roll of 4+, it just misses. So this is one of the few abilities that has the ability to turn a crit into a miss.
Absolutely turn anything into a miss. All right, we're now a 17th level character. We're getting our first Mystic Arcanum, our first 6th level spell slot. And for that, we can cast it once a day. We wanted to go big, so we went with Soul Cage. That is a utility spell that can be a defensive spell. It could be a buff spell. You can do so much with that.
A lot of fun while, your primary casters are out there getting their 9th level spells. You finally got access to 6th. Now, the sad part is Mystic Arcanum, based on the wording. You can't really use these for smites, but why would you want to smite someone when you can just lock them in a soul cage?
Absolutely.
So next up, we're going to get our next ASI and our next invocation. So what are we looking at here?
This is a really big level because we're going to get Life Drinker. Life Drinker is so good. Add your Charisma modifier as necrotic damage when you attack and when you hit with your Pact Boon weapon.
All right, so we're already getting, the +5 from our charisma. We're probably, sacking out a 5 to hit to get a +10 to damage. And now we're going to add 5 necrotic damage. That means, regardless of what's on the dice, our minimum damage is 20.
And again, we are also taking Infernal Constitution as our feat. That's a Tiefling-specific feat. That is going to give you resistance to cold, poison, and advantage on saves versus poison. We've already got resistance to fire. It's in Xanathar's Guide. We've already gone in there as our +1, so why not?
A super awesome level for this particular build. So Mystic Arcanum is our next ability, and we're going to wind up going into 7th level spells. And there were a couple awesome options. We were looking at Finger of Death because, we already have that Accursed Spectre, but we decided to go with Crown of Stars. I know there's an abundance of bonus action options for us, but when you got the ability to lay down 4d12 radiant damage, from these floating orbs above you, it lasts an hour. There's no concentration on it. So you could cast the spell and then wade into battle with your sword. And when you feel like it, just blast one of these things down.
Now, at this point, I think we can roll a die 6 and randomly choose the bonus action that we want to take for this round because we have so many of them. But Crown of Stars is a really great spell. So this is essentially where we're going to get Master of Hexes. This is our kind of capstone ability for the Hexblade, and it just lets you, move that Hexblade curse around after you've slain your enemy.
Super helpful, super awesome. As we mentioned, if you want to see, the level progression and how we went and built this specific character, you can look in the description and grab that link. But now we can get into how would we use this as DMs? What kind of evil mastermind villain, is this, or is it not a villain?
Well, jokingly on the character sheet for D&D Beyond, for the build, I added Black Razor. Because I thought it was funny, and Black Razor is really just Stormbringer from the Michael Moorcock series anyway, right? Well, Black Razor has a bunch of bad things that kind of happen to you if you don't use Black Razor to devour souls. And matter of fact, it has another effect where it does damage to you if you attack undead with it, because there's no soul. So it makes it kind of feisty, right? So this seems like the guy that should be carrying Black Razor, in my opinion. And he is a campaign big bad. He is a warlord. He brooks with demons and devils. This is a nasty piece of work that's going to show up in your campaign. He may show up early. He may hex one of the players and psychic blast all the other ones with that maddening hex. And, just take out the whole party early on, murder the NPC they came to murder. And then, just leave a trail of bodies behind them. And then the players will then swear vengeance and want to, do the heroic thing and have heroic angst to go after and bring down this villain.
I see this as something that, you've kind of got this protracted story out. While the player characters are off adventuring and exploring and meeting new people, you could kind of introduce this character early on and have him, yeah, he's arrogant, maybe he's a little off-putting, but maybe he isn't, directly evil right at the beginning. I mean, come on, we start off taking levels in Paladin, so maybe he's just, an arrogant knight that they meet, and it's like, oh God, I can't stand this guy. And they meet him, periodically, and maybe there's no direct sign of, oh, warlock. It's just a tiefling knight who's, arrogant and, he's off on his mission, and he doesn't really talk about what's there. So you keep seeding this character throughout the player's adventures. And by the time he hits 10th level, he's really powerful. So now all of a sudden, hey, this guy's making waves. This guy's really doing a lot in this world. Maybe we should look into it. But there's a bigger problem that the players have to contend with. And it's like, well, we'll get to him. Well, sadly, this other thing delays enough, and, now he's taken over. He's conquered, and he's got a throne, and he's got Black Razor. Now he's a serious problem, but it's more than what the players can easily contend with, and they have to go off and do more. Now, all of a sudden, you insert, demonic and undead presences, in and around his kingdom as he's sending an army to conquer more. I think this, as you said, this is a campaign in and of itself, and I like the idea of seeding your villain from the beginning. While you've got all these other stories going on, they met, and they could have dealt with him in the very beginning, but they didn't see the signs. There's no way to know that that's who it was going to be.
I also kind of see it as like your Hell Knight, your classic Hell Knight type character. They're just a champion for dark forces, dark gods, or demons and devils. Also, I like the idea of this character wielding a great sword, but at the same time having more of a graceful or lithe build to them, and they're not like huge and bulky. Now, when we did our character build, we really did want to go with a much lower strength, but because of multi-classing rules, we could not. As an NPC, you can do whatever you want as the DM, so you don't have to worry about those things. They could even be a little bit frail, but because they're able to brook with dark powers, and that's what powers them and infuses them, and they're literally attacking with their presence, their charisma is almost how they wield their weapon, taking from the mechanic side of things with the Hexblade and the Warlock and having that super high charisma.
They've got panache.
They could have panache. But yeah, so they look like they're wielding a weapon that maybe they shouldn't even be able to lift, let alone to wield it, and they wield it with speed and precision. If you're getting a +5 to hit with it, just from your bonus, that's really good. And you combine that with a +10 to damage. So when you hit, it's like getting hit by a freight train. Yeah, I like it. I think there could be some really cool surprises in there. You've got this almost elf-like build wielding, Cloudbuster, the Cloudbuster sword. You're expecting them to struggle to lift it, and then in an instant they're across the room and they're hitting you with it hard. So there's definitely some cool things you can do with it. But the question is, folks, how would you use it in your game? How would you use the NPC? Would you play this character build?
You can jump down to the description below, find a link to the character build guide, the character sheet over on D&D Beyond, as well as that awesome Kickstarter for those super sweet minis.
But before we go, I want to take a moment to invite you to join the Nerdarchy Adventuring Party over on Patreon. Ted, you want to tell them what they can find over there?
Every month, we're creating products for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons that both players and DMs alike can use and drop right into their game.
But not only that, we do a monthly giveaway, and our Patrons automatically get entered into that.
Our patrons also get to hang out with us on a weekly basis and more.
Head down to the description, join the Nerdarchy Adventuring Party over on Patreon, and until next time, stay nerdy.